What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Clean Energy Edge. I am Russ Bates, and with me, as always, the co-host from Canada, Mr. Brian Scott. Brian, good to have you here.
Great to see you again, Russ.
Well, I got a very important question. This is, very important. Um, Katy Perry is supposedly dating former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. What can you tell us about that?
Um, uh, Probably nothing that you haven't heard. I saw the headline. That's all I really know. Um, I feel like the Canadian media, both right and left, really does like to talk about Justin Trudeau. Well, I feel like the people in general are just kind of sick of the topic, but I don't know if this is just two people being seen together or whether this is a real thing, but it's kind of funny.
It's very exciting news. For Orlando Bloom, who had been dating her. I don't know if he'll be able to recover or not, but we're gonna have a good thought for all of them. So,
Yeah, for sure.
anyways, all right, let's talk about other important stuff. A very important topic that I think it's really reshaping the grid, and that's the massive and really growing electricity appetite of AI and data centers, and really what it means for each of us. The U.S. power supply. We've talked about that before, and we want to see what's going on in Canada too, but prices going up. So I think we could break down some numbers. I've got some stats I can share, including what these policy hits from, I've got a new name for it, the Big Billionaire Bill instead of the Big Ugly Bill. I
That
think that's a
feels,
little more fitting, right?
yeah, it does.
And see what we can do about that. But before we get rolling, we ask everybody, please hit that subscribe button, click the alert bell so you don't miss any episodes. So let's get into it, and let's start with some numbers, Brian.
Let's do it.
I told you I brought some stats, so let's start with today's numbers. And this is according to the Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. It's saying that U.S. data centers consume about 176 terawatt hours of electricity, and that was in 2023. So what does that mean, terawatt hour? That sounds like a lot. Is it? Yeah, that's roughly 4.4% of all U.S. electricity. And if you break that down, it works out to 600 kilowatt hours per person per year. Okay, what's that mean? It's like you're running a refrigerator nonstop all year just for you to have your personal slice of the internet and AI world running all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think when you hear 4 or 5%? Is that in line with what you were thinking? Again, this was 2 years ago. This is
Sure.
2023, so it's more now. But what's that do whenever you think of those numbers?
I think it's a scary number. I think it's such a scary number because I think we're just getting started. I think the race for this is just getting started. You see companies like Apple that are saying like, now we're ready to participate with all their cash. Like there's just getting more and more companies. And I feel like such a small percentage of the population is using AI on a large scale. I feel like people are kind of dabbling with it more so. I know you and myself both like to really use it for things.
Mhm.
It can be quite a great tool, but like we're just getting started. And as it becomes a stronger and stronger piece of equipment, if you want to put it that way, or tool, um, the demand, I don't know that the efficiency is going to grow with the demand as far as how that works. I don't know. I don't know enough about the back end of AI to really speak on that. But if it keeps growing and it becomes such a massive part of energy consumption, it's scary. It's like we've spent all this time like trying to reduce consumption through efficiencies and try to green the grid and doing all these things, and it feels so defeating to hear something like this, such a big number, such a big impact. What are your thoughts?
Whenever I hear that number, it was a bit surprising to me 2 years ago because I and I'd have to rewind, have to get the time machine to go back. But I mean, AI wasn't to me something we were really hearing much about until, if I remember correctly, I mean, you'd hear it every once in a while. You'd see it in the movies and things like that. But as far as mainstream like it is today, it feels like it was just 2 years ago that you started hearing more about that. I don't know when, Chat GPT started becoming a big thing. Now you see these commercials, Google AI and all these different AI partners. It's like everybody's got AI doing something.
Yeah.
And I don't remember it 2 years ago, certainly not 5 years ago. So that percentage, that 4 to 5%, it's small, but it's big to me
The
whenever you're thinking about what we're talking about and how it does seem like we'll call it a hockey stick, right? As far as it's
Yeah.
really going up quickly if you put it on a graph. It never went down. I'm just saying it's an
Sure.
incredible increase
Yeah.
that we're just talking AI. I mean, data centers and all the social media stuff and everything that is not being put on paper, that's being digitized, and it's data. I mean, that's all goes into what we're talking about.
I know, and it's being incorporated into everything, right? I know a friend of mine works on kind of that in that world, talking about how incorporated it's becoming with all of Microsoft's suite of tools, and how it's just going to be completely intertwined there. And as if you have a business membership or more, like 365 Copilot or whatever it is, it's all going to be so tied in. It's going to be at a point where you're going to be, I would say, forced to learn it, even if you're not interested in it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just going to be tied in with your email, tied in with your Excel, if you want to say anything that you're using on your computer is going to have an element of AI. I mean, even Canva stuff that I've looked at when you're just like maybe, building out a brochure or something like that. There's always an offering for AI. It's always there now. And as it gets better and better, it's such a great tool. It's it's so tempting. I think that's what makes me believe the growth is going to be so rapid as far as energy consumption, is that I think anybody who uses it gets pretty hooked on it pretty quickly. It's pretty amazing.
It is. You look at it. I've been using AI now for, I guess, about a year, and the more I use it, the more I find other ways to incorporate it and use it. I started off just using it for very small things. I'm trying it out. I'm trying to understand how it works. And then as you get more comfortable, you want to use it more, right? Because, oh, it can do this for me, and it can do this for me, and wow, it can do all this for me. Um, Meaning, it's a bit of a gateway, right? You,
Oh,
you kind of,
it's I read an article there on the weekend about GPT-5 and some of its increased capabilities. And I played with it yesterday, and I tried an example of something somebody did, and it blew my mind, where you basically were taking banking statements, credit cards, et cetera, for your business. You throw them all into a drive, you link it to GPT-5, and you say, kind of basically do my accounting. And, 15 minutes later, you've got this giant Excel with tabs breaking down all your financials with pictures and graphs. And I was just like, oh my God, like that is just
wow.
insane, right? Even some of the stuff, the analysis we do for energy analytics for companies, um, taking some of that hourly consumption, power factor, all those peaks and whatnot, all that data that shows up on an Excel or some sort of spreadsheet, depending on what you use, that is a mile long and a mile wide. And I threw it in there and just told it what I wanted it to look like. 15 minutes later, 5 minutes maybe, it pumps it out. You're like, wow. Like
Yeah.
the efficiency, the understanding, its ability to like just kind of figure out what you're looking for and present it so quickly. It's mind blowing. And that's like GPT-5 just came out, and the math that it was doing, um, to do these tasks for me, I would put at a much higher level than any of the other stuff I've ever asked it to do. So did GPT-5 just do this for consumption for any of their customers? I don't know.
It makes sense because I think the point you were making earlier was, are these chips becoming more efficient, right?
That's the question.
Or I get the sense, and I'm not a chip guy, but it's hopefully somebody can correct me on this, and I hope I am wrong. But my understanding is these chips have more computing and processing power but they're needing more electricity to do that. So a chip may be smaller in size and be a lot more efficient and powerful, but it's going to need even more electricity. I know I talked with you remember Pete Kelly. He was on the pod early on, and we were talking about AI and data centers, and he mentioned that used to it'd be a 20 megawatt data center. And then they jumped up to 50 megawatts. He said now they're 100 plus megawatt data centers. Um, I don't know if the footprint's that much bigger or if it just needs that much more power.
Well,
I don't know.
and it's interesting. I remember the news a month or two ago, maybe it was 6 months ago. Everything moves so fast. That one of the Chinese companies was able to achieve a lot of the same things ChatGPT was able to achieve with their AI, but not using the best chips. Because their coding was more efficient, just their methods. And I know like Sam Altman and some of them were very kind of skeptical as to some of the claims and what they claimed they're using for power and all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it might have been, I don't want to say propaganda, but it might have just been kind of a sales piece because at the time the US was really holding back a lot of those chips from being able to be sold to China, right? And now, interestingly enough, and this actually ties all back in, we see this deal with the US where they're going to allow these companies to sell the best, brightest chips to China, but the US is going to collect some revenue, a significant amount of revenue too.
15%, right? I mean,
and the ethics of that battle of, the US versus China and all of that kind of big discussion is there, but it's not really the point. It's you just gave that capacity to a massive economy, the manufacturing economy, the one that's trying the hardest, in my view, to move ahead. Where more democratic nations like yours and mine, we tend to kind of zig and zag towards progress because everybody gets a vote and an opinion, and we tend to bite off our own foot, sort of so to speak. But it's one of those things that single move could increase the consumption of energy in China. And we've talked about this before, right? China is doing a much better job than anyone else at greening their grid, making their grid more economically sustainable even. And sure, so many of those parts come from the ground up there, but it's very interesting. I'll say that it's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how some people can't connect the dots. I'm going to go off a little bit here, but it's okay for the U.S. government to collect revenue to send stuff over to China, supposedly our big enemy, that we're trying to bring manufacturing and we don't like how they do things and they're communist government and this and that. But we're still going to have tariffs on the U.S. consumers and cost more money, which, by the way, is going to go to the U.S. government with those tariffs. So, it's all kind of tied together. But no, it all kind of comes to the same point of these numbers. While we're thinking 4 to 5% is pretty big, that's probably understated and is only going to grow as time goes on, because as people get more comfortable with AI, I don't know how much social media is going to continue. I'm sure it will, but I see AI as the big driver in the data center world. Got some more notes. Let's see. So these numbers, I think, may be a bit light. By 2030, so this is where we're going. By 2030, the DOE and Goldman Sachs, they put some projections here. It says we'll be using 360 to 400 terawatt hours a year just for data centers. So that's basically doubled. That's the 8 to 9% of all U.S. electricity.
Sure.
And that means per person, again, it's almost a double, 1,000 to 1,100 kilowatt hours per year. That's 115 to 125 watts per person running 24/7. And then 2035, which isn't, I remember 2015, 10 years ago, and we're already, well through the year 2025. Bloomberg is seeing it climbing to 430 to 440 terawatts. or getting into it. That's not as big a jump, but it's going to be over 10%. Um, I don't know. The big jump is going to be up here to 2030 is what they're saying. Right. So doubling in 5 years. I mean, how realistic do you think those projections are?
I feel like the demand is very realistic. I feel like our ability to feed that is very unrealistic.
Yeah.
We're not there. We're not ready. I know the California grid, or I'm trying to remember which utility it was, did one of those uh, big battery tests. They basically had what it was like 10,000 batteries or something. They did a 2-hour test, kind of leading up to August and all the big demand coming. And they got some, really impressive results using all of these batteries to manage that 7 to 9 p.m. Peak, because their batteries are getting, that much, they're taking up a much larger part of that grid. And you're seeing that more and more, and all these batteries working together. And it's just stuff like that is going to be so in need. A bunch of battery companies, I shouldn't say battery companies as far as like battery material companies like lithium and whatnot, saw a bit of a spike there over the last day or so. I don't know if you heard anything about this, but there was one of the cattle lithium mines didn't get renewed. Their mining license didn't get renewed by the Chinese government due to, I believe it was an environmental concern of some sort. But that mine is 3% of lithium. Right. So that's not a small number when we're talking about the growth we're seeing in batteries. Right. I just think it's one of those things that it's like everything we look at. Well, I don't push a lot of batteries on people because quite often they don't make a ton of sense in the short term. But they are going to be part of the overall solution more and more. We're going to need more energy, and we're going to need to be able to control it more. And I don't think it's realistic to think in 5 years we're going to pump out enough even natural gas plants to solve that issue.
No, I agree with you. I think we had this conversation before about they basically here in the U.S. kneecapped the renewable energy generation sector with cutting incentives. They're just going after it. They've cut out transmission line projects that were going to be fed from clean energy. They just got rid of those. So what good are the clean energy projects if you can't tie them to the grid or behind the meter type of situation? We can have the batteries, but what's going to feed them? I think is the question. What they talk about with fossil fuels is 24/7, nuclear, they throw that in there. But, kind of back to one of our other episodes, you start building a fossil fuel power plant today, you could get it done in a year. You still won't have the steam turbine generators, right? So that's for coal, for natural gas, what have you. Those are 2030. It's going to be well past when we need the electricity per these numbers, these projections. Nuclear is even worse. So
I wouldn't be surprised if we would see a significant holdback for countries like yours and mine for stuff like data centers, just for the simple fact of, construction of those has to get approved, and utilities are going to be looking at these applications saying, I want X capacity. And they're going to be thinking, I can't give that to you. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like where's that energy coming from without some sort of like kind of nation building? I know nation building is the wrong word, but it was kind of under Biden. That was a big kind of approach with the IRA, was we're going to make these massive investments and massive impacts. And I don't think we even realized how big AI was going to be back then. Maybe the government did, but the process the government's taking now, it's just not ready for it.
Yeah, they're promoting AI. Also crypto and crypto language is another extremely energy intensive type of thing that it's above me. I just know it needs a lot of electricity. I don't really trust the crypto market, but that's probably just from my ignorance. But whenever you factor all of those things in, to your point, if I'm Amazon or Google or Facebook / Meta, Instagram, Snappity Chat, whatever they are these days, where am I going to get the electricity? I've got to have this data center, right? Where am I going to put it where I can get the electricity? Again, it all kind of circles back to clean energy. is the most economical, easily deployable, and batteries is part of that. So there's still some play there.
It's really one of those things where to your point, it enforces the need, it enforces the economics for decentralized energy with battery backup, right? Or battery integration. Um, it's just one of those things that it's like they're trying to put them down, but their approach might end up just propping them back up here in no time.
Yeah, because supply and demand, we've talked about that, right? The supply it was going up whenever you had clean energy, and you had some natural gas plants coming online or planned to come online and build. But now it's just going to be those natural gas plants.
Yep.
They're going to keep some coal-fired plants online. They're going to have some nuclear that probably stays online a little bit longer. I know 3 Mile Island is one that they've talked about. Using that again. Um, but the supply is not there. Nowhere near these numbers we're talking about. Nowhere near, if you take all of that out, you're still going to have an increase in consumption without data centers, without crypto mining, without whatever. We need more air conditioners, and they're going to be running more,
Yeah.
given the climate epidemic we're in. So, yeah, I know data centers need a lot of electricity. Does it make sense to build a lot of solar and battery, and probably instances where you can put some wind up to power a data center? I don't know that they're going to have the option not to do that.
I think I think not that long ago that would have felt a little crazy to me, that like that decentralized approach. The economics might not have always been there for such a big scale thing that it requires constant power. But it feels inevitable now. It just feels inevitable. The demand is so high. They're going to need something like that.
And we've already debunked the SMR theory. Well, they just put SMRs. Oh, that's still 2030 plus, so it's not going to help in this short term. Somebody thinks we're wrong, let us know, but I think we've gone through that. And some more stats here. So the Big Billionaire Bill, it's gutted, it's sunset a lot of the clean energy tax incentives from the IRA. The numbers that we're looking at, analysts are saying that's going to be, and I think these are conservative numbers, 53 to 59% less new capacity, as far as less new generation coming online because of that, meaning that they're saying up to 60%. I'm going to say it's probably more than that. Let's just say 60% of these projects that had been planned or were probably in different stages of development
True.
are no longer on the board.
And something that would have an impact on data centers as well, but just general energy demand is, well, I think we both agree that Mr. Musk there is often way off on his time predictions for his products. But some of the predictions that are being made on everything from robotaxi implementation to the robotics of their Tesla, what is it, Optimus 3 or whatever, if they're anywhere near right, the energy demand goes up, right? Like we're both two big proponents of EVs, but he's talking about half of the US having access to robotaxis before the end of the year. Now, I almost feel like that's Musk for 2 years from now. Um,
Yeah.
but if it's true, um, I mean, we have increasing generations of people that just don't want to buy vehicles, right? They want to, walk, bus, whatever, like keep it cheap, but they also like to do ride sharing and stuff like that. Like robotaxi, I've always believed in the concept of robotaxis. They like, it doesn't have to be specifically robotaxis, but ride shares and stuff like that, where people can, a vehicle can literally serve 20 to 30 people in a day versus one. It's
Yeah.
so much more economical at scale.
It's economical. For so many reasons. I'm thinking of a person. I mean, Uber kind of serves the same purpose, but the robotaxi would be even more so. And I'm in a total agreement. Whenever Musk says by the end of the year, I would to me, that's code for add 5 years at a minimum. So we'll see what happens, but that's another thing to factor in is the that electrification. Something else that's pretty new here. We were talking before we got on the Solar for All program here in the U.S. was they're trying to claw that back. Now there would be lawsuits and everything, but that Solar for All program is one that helps low economic neighborhoods, rural areas where they may not have, the best economics for clean energy, but to do clean energy, solar being the big one, batteries and other things. They just call it Solar for All. And where I'm going with this is that's another piece of the generation pie that's gone, because the more behind the meter type of things that you have, the more on site, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, educational pieces, community solar, the more that you've got of that, the less that you need off of the grid. So that just put additional strain onto the grid. I don't even know if they understand that. I think it's obviously more political than anything, but man, that's going to be a big deal. That's just one example, but there's a lot of those.
Yeah, it's true. And in the robotics side of things feels like it's such a big thing. You see some of the videos some of these companies can do with the robotics. It's such a big thing. It feels so inevitable, but it also feels far off. But I think when you start factoring two things, you start factoring robotaxis of any sort, any brand, whatever, taking all that fossil energy consumption and switching it over to electricity. And then you take basically people's jobs and switch them over to robots. The energy consumption it's insane.
Right. No, that's a good point.
How do you even measure that? I mean, I'm sure somebody can do it. I'm sure somebody has an idea as to what these optimists and whatnot consume for energy.
Yeah, I did talk to someone. This has been, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about the Tesla Optimus robot, right? And they said that there was an engineer that was on that team for Tesla, and he ended up quitting because they wouldn't let him take off to go to his sister's wedding or to his wedding. He said yeah, and so he quit or was fired or whatever, but he kind of let let it slip, or maybe did it on purpose, saying, hey, this Optimus is nowhere near gonna be ready. It's got a long lead time before it's available. I think, what were they saying, like $30,000 for this thing? I don't know
less than I would have guessed.
Yeah. But again, that's 30 grand. I don't think I need one. Depends on what it does.
How you can justify that return on investment is pretty hard, right?
Yeah. I think Kim Kardashian's got one on order. So there's one sold, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about.
We'll throw in one with every Cybertruck.
Oh, geez. I don't know.
I don't know if that helps or hurts. I don't know.
I think that
it's the other way. You throw in a Cybertruck with every Optimus order.
Well, now that may do something as long as and they lower the price on the Optimus. So yeah, Cybertruck's a whole other story, isn't it? Here's some more stats. Demand growth. So PJM here in the U.S., it's our country's largest grid. They have already warned about capacity, auction prices spiking, and all that because of data center and AI. And some analysts are saying 30 to 60% higher retail power bills by 2030. That was reported in Reuters just the other day. Yeah, that's going to be pretty bad. We've talked about the investment tax credit being gutted, and that's 30% on the, just the base. So it's offset right there, 30 to 60%. We're already seeing double-digit increases here in Ohio for electricity prices due to the demand. So, I mean, the prices, the reliability, it kind of gets back into this conversation we've had about supply and demand costs going up, and whenever you've only got X number of electrons to put out on the grid, probably going to be these data centers that are going to get them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it just feels, it all stirs back to the point of people becoming, desiring to become more self-reliant, right? Whether it's solar production on your roof and a battery in your basement, or whatever it may be, whether it's a business, a home, all these sorts of things, vehicle to grid. I mean, we talked about that in the past, where it's such a potentially large asset, but it's not really there yet as far as the equipment that's required between the car and the house. It might be one of those things where I know those protocols are due to be out at some point soon. Um, but that feels like something that's inevitably going to have to be part of this.
Yeah, and I guess the question I've got is, do consumers have any clue what is coming? Because typically, whenever there's a brownout or blackout, that's when they're kind of like, oh, what's going on? Whenever they get that electricity bill, this seems like it's way high. Is this 2 months or 1 month? Um, are people paying attention? Because I'm seeing a ton of articles about what's going on with the grid and pricing and all these concerns. I don't know how many people are actually getting those and actually paying attention and connecting the dots of, oh, this could be a pretty big deal for us.
Yeah, I still see companies and people looking at solar farms and whatnot in our market being like, well, the price is low. It's like, well, the price is low right now. It's very, like, I don't know if I want to say like historically low. Um, but it's lower than it's been in a while, the price of electricity here. But it's very foreseeable that it's just not going to be there yet, right? Or sorry,
Right.
that it's going up. It's going to happen.
It has to. I mean, um, and Texas, this could be a little bit of a wake up call. Texas just passed a law giving ERCOT, that's their grid operator,
Yep.
the power to cut off power to these big data centers during emergencies. So you remember what happened in 2021, where they had these big power outages, and ERCOT it's just in the
Yeah.
state of Texas, so they had a lot of issues right there. They passed a law, and I'm wondering if anybody else will do the same thing, saying that data center, hey, if it comes down to it, we're shutting off your AI, and you're not
And
going to be able
crypto.
to, yeah, your crypto and all of
Yeah.
that, and that power is going to go out to citizens, which I give them credit for that. I think that makes
Has to
a lot
happen.
of sense.
Yeah.
Um, but do you think other states um, will maybe follow through and do kind of the same thing? Or do you think there's going to be too much money coming from the tech sector to protect against that? Because really, that's going to push, data centers from, not wanting to go to Texas, I think.
It's one of those interesting things with Texas, in my opinion. Like, they had some great policies to get a mass implementation of batteries. I think you really have to kind of give them their props on that. But the problem with that is, um, they've also had some policies, like, they're just so growth, that they've encouraged crypto and data mining and all, like, data centers, all these sorts of things that just take a lot. You know what I mean? Um,
Mhm.
So you can be so pro growth that you're kind of causing a problem and fixing it at the same time and achieving nothing. Like, I think they're in a stronger position than they were a few years ago when they had their blackouts, but it doesn't feel like they're trying to solve the issue.
Yeah, the blackout they had in 21, I know they were pointing at wind turbines freezing up and things like that.
Yeah, which was nonsense.
The truth of that is, it wasn't because of clean energy. It was because they had this cold spell, that it's Texas and they weren't used to that. And it was actually the natural gas plants and other plants, the fossil plants, that had problems freezing up. They weren't heat traced because, why would you heat trace in Texas? That's a warm spot. But hey, climate change affects these things. Um, well, kind of putting all this together, if you had to boil it down with this whole scenario, I mean, what's the one thing that you think we should be doing now to prevent these outages and prices from spiking and just everything that's going to happen with this additional consumption? I mean, I think I know your answer, but given where we're at, what do you think, especially here in the U.S., can be done? I know it should be done, but what do you think can be done?
I mean, the first answer is policy, right? And I don't know that like the IRA was perfect, but something along that line that's like the ITC, stuff like that, that encourages people to continue to invest in kind of self-sustained energy. Um, you just need, if everybody's going to consume more and more energy, they all kind of need to own their production a little bit more, is kind of my easiest path. Production and storage, whether it's slowly getting towards vehicle to grid, stuff like that. But we need more power. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. We need more power. Data centers, especially, I keep thinking about Texas and the real estate they have there. It's a lot easier and it's more conducive to, maybe cover a little bit of desert with solar and throw some wind turbines up and batteries and put a data center out there as opposed to other areas, and just have it. Maybe it's tied to the grid. Maybe it's it's an island situation, but that could still make a lot of sense. I guess there's other places that you could have that happen too. But yeah, it's really going to come down to you need to produce your own electricity and not depend on the grid to take care of it, because they just don't have the ability to do that.
Very true. It's very true. There's going to have to be big changes, and we don't seem to want to move in that direction, do we?
Not with this administration. No, they're really wanting to take it back to the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and maybe a little bit into the 80s with regards to how things are done. So we'll see. Well, I mean, I guess what it comes down to is the cloud isn't free, right? AI is not magic.
Free lunches.
Yeah, and the Big Billionaire Bill just made sure that, hey, this is just going to cost people more. It's going to cost consumers more. It's going to cost ratepayers more, unless something changes, and I don't see anything changing for the next few years. So you want to be safe. You need to do that. And the sooner we face that reality, the better chance we're going to have to keep the lights on and these bills under control. So, anything else you thinking, Brian?
It's hard to believe in this part of the world, the wealth that exists, and we could literally kind of self-destruct the grid, which would be so destructive to the economy. Like, it's kind of hard to believe. It's kind of hard to believe, but it feels almost inevitable without a different approach.
Yeah. And I don't know that people, like we were talking a little bit ago, I don't know that they recognize what's coming. It's coming. There's no doubt about it. It's math. It's simple math.
It's math. Yeah.
I just don't think they get it. But hey, we're definitely going to keep an eye on it. So we'll close this one out. I want to thank everybody for joining. Again, hit that subscribe button, click the alert bell so you don't miss an episode of the Clean Energy Edge. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.